and welcome to Boom It's on the Blockchain. My name's Alistair Caithness, and each week I'm joined by guests to discuss blockchain, Bitcoin, crypto, tokenization, and everything happening in this space. Enjoy the show. Hi, and welcome to Boom It's on the Blockchain. We are in our 94th show, and today we've got a returning guest, Jonathan Knight, all the way from San Diego. How are you, Johnny?
Hey, I'm doing great. Yeah, thanks for having me and good to be back.
Good to be back. Perfect. So I know you've been in the show before and we've talked about different, energy sources and renewable energy, but this time we're doing a bit of a recap on your company and all the developments there. So for people who haven't seen any of the previous podcasts, can you just give a bit of background about yourself and the company, John?
Yeah, absolutely. So Uprise Energy is a startup. We're located here in San Diego, California. This is where our roots are, and we've developed the world's first commercially sized portable wind turbine. So this is a 12 kilowatt wind turbine that folds up into itself like a transformer. You can kind of see it in the background here, and it's fully set up. But that unit folds up so you can tow it with an ordinary vehicle. It also is designed so it fits into a 20-foot shipping container for sending it long distances. And we've optimized the machine for average wind speeds around the world. So unlike traditional wind turbines that require very high wind speeds to make power, our system is designed for that distributed generation, making the power where the people are. So we've got some really cool proprietary innovations that have gone into maximizing our low wind speed performance. So we can power those people directly. And this company is really an evolution of a couple of prior companies. My family was in the boat building business here in town, and their expertise in composites got the attention of the large wind turbine businesses. And so at that company, we spun off a wind energy division where we were manufacturing new turbine blades and repairing turbine blades, and we had a field services division that was servicing wind farms all around the world. And we really innovated a number of technologies for the wind energy space that we have drawn from those backgrounds. And I am co-founded this company with my dad, who was the principal of the boat building company. And here we are building the world's first commercially sized portable wind turbine.
Perfect. That's a good intro. And is it not the world's largest mobile wind turbine?
Well, yeah, not only is it the world's largest mobile wind turbine, but it is the world's largest portable renewable energy system of any type.
So for people to understand, it's like, so where would you use it and how much energy is it going to create? So who would be customers for this?
Well, that's a good question because everybody needs power. And different markets will have different motivations for needing power. And so when you look at our wind turbine, there's some markets like the military that are going to be really interested in the unique capabilities of the wind turbine and how it improves operational capabilities in the battlefield and how it will save the lives of military personnel. On the other end of the spectrum, we make power at a very attractive cost per kilowatt, less than what we're paying here in our office in San Diego. So if you have a little bit of space at your home or business or job site, and you've got a little bit of wind, well, our system could be considered as an alternative to diesel generators for that remote power, but also as a way to save money on your power bill, similar to what I do with the solar on the roof of my home. And then of course, we're a clean energy generator, and so as I mentioned, this is a lower cost clean energy alternative to diesel generators. So all of those applications where you might consider using a diesel generator, our system, potentially is a viable alternative to that. So, small diesel generators are ubiquitous around the world. There's literally billions of them running right now as we speak. But they're also some of the most egregious polluters there are. And they're very expensive to run, and they require a lot of maintenance. All issues that our mobile wind turbine overcomes.
Yeah, no, that's super interesting. So I have a few questions just based on what you said there. So let's start talking about the military itself. Now, Obviously, when it was 3, 4 years ago, when Trump was in charge, there was no wars. But now he's been out of office, there's a few wars on the go, you know? No one would have thought that. For the US government, 77% of the energy that's used in the US government's by the military. And 1% of all the energy in the US is used by the military itself. So the military have targets as well to actually go into green, out with, vehicles they're using for battle, etc. So how is the military going to be using your device, and how are they going to deploy it, and what's the benefits of using what you're doing compared to, say, traditional diesel generators taking power outside?
Well, again, there's lots of different ways to use the wind turbine. Starting with our domestic military installations, they are all looking to become more green, but more importantly, more resilient and more redundant in their power systems. For example, the U.S. Air Force, their Tyndall Air Force Base back in Florida was completely wiped out in one of the recent hurricanes. And so after that happened, they came back with a commitment to build the base of the future. And so they needed more resiliency and redundancy. And so our system represents that ability to provide power where you need it. It's not tethered by the power grid, and it's not relying on a fossil fuel. So if there is that kind of natural disaster that takes out your utility power systems, well, we have a solution that can respond and bring power where you need it. Well, one, it can provide good, reliable power 24/7, 365. But if there is that emergency situation, now you have a mobile power source that you can move around and bring power where you need it. Speaking of the United States Air Force, they occupy a phenomenal amount of acreage throughout the country. And so they have power needs all over the place. And really so their power grid doesn't extend to all areas of their military installations. So really that was one of the prime motivations in our initial development, was creating a more reliable, more cost-effective solution than the diesel generator for that edge of grid electrification. So we've got a great solution for that. Then when you talk about going into the battlefield, well, one, the US military has made a commitment to electrify their fleet. And there are operational advantages of running electric power systems, your electric power vehicles, electric everything. It reduces heat signature. You have instantaneous torque out of your vehicles. You can move around silently. There's really a lot of advantages, but where do you get the electricity in the battlefield? And so that's a solution that we can potentially help with. Granted, the amount of power that we make, it's not going to power large fleets of electric vehicles, but in those battlefield type environments, we can easily put a unit in the field and generate a meaningful amount of power. Or when you look at the support systems, so one of the projects that we're engaged on is, again, with the US Air Force on a project that they call the Expedient Basing Challenge. And so this is all about quickly setting up US Air Force bases on small islands in the Pacific Ocean that are proximate to the conflict zone. So they want to be able to go out to these probably uninhabited islands and quickly set up an Air Force base, and then be able to break it down quickly when they leave. And so obviously one of the critical pieces of infrastructure there is going to be the power component. And that's where we shine. You put our wind turbines in shipping containers so they can easily be shipped to these islands. They can roll them off. And actually, we're developing a remote control system for our portable wind turbine so that you don't even need a tow vehicle. You can drive it wherever you want under its own remote control. And then the whole system sets up in a matter of 15 or 20 minutes. But we have a very significant amount of battery storage in the trailer, so those units can be deployed with those batteries fully charged, meaning the moment you arrive, you plug in, you get all the power you need. And then you use the wind turbine and the solar feature to keep those batteries charged. So it's very valuable in that regard. I was just in an event last week. It was called the TEVCon, the Tactical EV Convention. And so this was all about bringing electric innovators together with the various branches of the military to help support this transition to an electrified fleet. And one of the quotes from one of the top presenters that was there was, fossil fuels are the Achilles heel of the US military. So they are looking to get away from the burden of fossil fuel, which, kind of jumping around a little bit here, but when you're talking about forward operating bases in the military, they are constrained by the amount of energy that they can take with them. And so since most of them are being powered by their AMPS generators, which run on fossil fuels, they have to deliver the fuel out to these forward operating bases. One, the fuel delivery is extremely expensive. They burn more fuel in the delivery process than they're actually able to deliver. And the landed cost of fuel, it's upwards of $900 per gallon for a landed cost. But even more importantly, though, the fuel delivery, that is the most dangerous job in the military. Yeah, because the bad guys know, hey, if we take out that fuel convoy, all those guys that are waiting for the fuel, they're going to be stranded. So there's an awful lot of applications for our system in military. I mean, those are some high level applications, but the size and the scope. I mean, you just talked about the amount of power consumption that the military is responsible for. So there is just everything runs on energy, and we have a unique system that's going to help them be more effective in their missions.
Yeah, and I also think for the viewers to understand that, if you go to war with people, one of the parts of the trade war is that if you're getting fuel or you're getting oil from these countries, then they can hold that for you. The oil becomes more expensive. Suddenly the cost of your military can go up 50, 60%, i.e. what's sort of happening with Russia and Ukraine and Europe, etc. People need to realize that, we thought we would do the sort of embargoes against Russia to stop them selling oil, but then India and China bought up all the surplus that was going to Europe. But on the other hand, everyone in Europe's prices for their gas and their oil went up. So it's not it's not just as simple as people think. Oh well, this. So one of the key advantages going to renewable energy is suddenly you're not relying on a third country supplying you your energy source, which in America right now or in California, since Biden's taken to office, we've doubled. Well, I think it's a 50% increase in our oil imports from Saudi Arabia. Who knows how things lie, but suddenly if Saudi Arabia cut production or the price of oil goes up to $120, $130 a barrel, it's like a huge difference that's happening here as well. So, everything's sort of connected. Coming back to what you said earlier as well, then, Jonathan, it's just, so they're using it for military applications, but what other types of applications that on the edge of the grid where you feel that your machine could be helpful?
Well, there's an awful lot, but just to touch on a couple of projects that we're actively involved in right now. So here in a couple of weeks, we're going to be putting one of our units in a shipping container to be shipped to the island of Fiji, where we're going to be participating in a zero emissions generator program in Fiji. So this is a 6-month pilot to measure the efficacy of our wind turbines as an alternative to the diesel generators for powering those islands. I couldn't be more excited about this project because from the onset here, providing power to island nations has been one of the key markets that we've always looked at. There's a number of reasons why this makes sense, and so close to 10% of the world's population live on islands, the vast majority of which are disconnected from utility power grids, meaning they're generating their power locally, which most of them are using diesel generators. And again, you've got the environmental issues of running diesel generators, but then you've got the fuel supply issues, which aren't always great. And then when you think about islands, they are disproportionate contributors to climate change, and they're disproportionately affected by climate change. Meaning, when they get all their power from inefficient diesel generators that are belching a lot of CO2 into the atmosphere, one, that's impacting climate change, but two, as sea levels rise, and you're talking about small islands, well, those islands tend to disappear as the sea level goes up. So that's why I say they're disproportionately, contributing and affected by climate change. So that's going to be a great project. Another project that we're actively involved with, we have a contract with the California Energy Commission called MORBUGs, Mobile Renewable Backup Generators. And so here in the state of California, we've got a fairly recent new policy. It's called Public Safety Power Shutoff, PSPS. And this is a policy that was put in place because we've had a number of significant wildfires in the state of California that have been caused by the utility power grid. So there's been high wind Santa Ana weather conditions that have toppled over power lines that have fallen into dry brush, sparked that dry brush, and caused fires. This literally bankrupted Pacific Gas and Electric. It nearly bankrupted San Diego Gas and Electric. So this is a big issue, and the utility power companies have decided that if there is a weather condition that poses this threat to creating another wildfire, they're not going to take the risk. They're going to proactively turn off the grid in advance. And so this MORBUGs contract that we got was all about vetting new technologies that would be alternatives to diesel generators for that emergency response. Because all of the utilities throughout the state now are legally mandated to be prepared for these future emergencies with technologies like our Uprise mobile power station. So we're near the end of this contract. We're doing demonstrations throughout the state of California in simulated emergencies, many of which are happening at some of our military bases, but in communities, military bases, throughout the state. And I'm pleased to say that the Energy Commission has been so pleased with our technology and working with us that we are putting together our next contract as a follow-on to this one. So those are just a couple of projects that we're actively involved with. We have agriculture businesses that are customers of ours. We're working with a multinational agriculture company that has a clean energy initiative that they have to transition to at least 50% clean energy, and our wind system is going to be a critical provider for that transition. So there's an awful lot of applications for this product. We get inquiries literally from around the world on a daily basis from various markets and territories all around the world wanting to know how they can get their hands on our mobile wind turbine.
So from an agricultural perspective, how are they actually using the turbine then?
Well, so agriculture, they use power. And a lot of times when you're dealing with agriculture, these are great big, plots of land to grow the crops or whatever they're involved with, which means, one, a lot of them are moving to electrified farm equipment. Two, it's common to have power needs in remote parts of their properties. And so we have the ability to generate clean power on site and wherever on their property that they might need it. So again, generators and grid power are going to be very popular at these sites. And so we just represent an opportunity to offset some of those dirtier forms of energy with a clean alternative that's also likely going to be lower cost.
Yeah, so you're helping them sort of hit their targets. I think it's like 2035 or something. Agriculture has got to hit a certain target within the US now as well.
Sure, you've got government mandates on this, and then you've got a lot of these companies that have implemented their own corporate policies for even more aggressive targets than what the government is requiring.
So how many turbines are working in the agricultural sector right now?
Oh, yeah, I don't have a good answer for you on that. But what I can say is that our system, because of its portability, has very unique capabilities that are highly attractive to this industry. And so, to talk about that for a second, so our wind turbine has the current model that we've commercialized has a 12 kilowatt nameplate rating. There are other manufacturers that make wind turbines of similar size, but none of them are portable. They're all permanently installed into one location. And so in the buying process for one of those other wind turbines, before these other manufacturers would sell you a wind turbine, they would mandate that you perform a protracted wind study in the location where you want to set up that wind turbine. Meaning they want you to measure the wind at the very site for at least a year, if not 18 to 24 months, to verify that you have adequate wind resources in that location to justify the purchase and installation of the wind turbine. And so assuming you go through the wind study process and you decide, okay, we have the wind resource, now you have to do the site improvements, you have to get the permits, you have to make the connections. And so you're looking at least a 2-year process between the time you say, hey, I'm interested in wind energy for this spot, to the time you're actually making it, assuming you can tick all those boxes along the way. Our system, on the other hand, well, I could go hook up to one of them in our shop right now. We could be, a few hours up the road, and then within minutes of arrival, well, again, we can arrive fully charged, so we can plug in the moment we get there, and then a few minutes later, we have the turbine up and we're making power. And that is the wind study. So now, something to clarify at this point, though, is that there's a common misconception that the portability features on our wind turbine come at a cost premium. But the reality is our unit cost compared to the competitor's installed cost, they're right on par with each other. But one, we avoid all of those initial wind studies and permits and so forth. No permit required. Portable generators don't require a permit. We build a portable generator. So that's a unique feature in itself. But also, the portability of our system is, is the novel feature that's most easy to recognize. I argue that the more important innovation here is in the performance and the efficiency of the wind turbine, especially in our low wind speed performance. So we've taken a unique approach to generating power from the wind, that we've got a number of proprietary systems that maximize the system's performance and make it by far the best in class in terms of efficiency and production. So now we've got a cost competitive product that you can get running right away. You don't need permits, and it's going to outperform the legacy models in this size range. Which ultimately yields a lower cost of delivered power and higher production with better energy density. So a lot of strong arguments to go with an Uprise mobile machine over what's currently available in the market.
Yeah, so thinking a little bit about permits, because I know that one of the problems with putting up any form of wind farm is the permits and then the sort of height restrictions that people have, especially if you're going into, farming areas, government areas that they're trying to put wind turbines on. How does yours get round the permits, or do you take it to a certain height so you can go out there straight away?
Well, the answer here is that this is a new product and we fit into a bit of a gray area. And so right now I can go down the street to the equipment rental company and I can rent a diesel generator and I can take it out to my property. I can run it, no permit required, because it's a portable generator and portable generators do not require permits. We're building a portable generator. Now, Granted, nobody's built a portable generator that stands 20 meters tall with a 7-meter rotor diameter that spins up to 159 RPM. So that is a bit unique. But at the end of the day, it's still a portable generator. And so we fit into this category that doesn't really require permits. Some areas are going to have unique zoning restrictions, especially if you get into residential areas that may have certain height restrictions. Those zoning restrictions go away if you're in an emergency response capability, but it might be something to consider if you're looking for a long-term power solution on your private property. But really, most of our market is going to take place in rural areas where these height restrictions just don't apply. Now, I will share, though, that here we are at our San Diego factory, and we are literally right across the street from an airport, Montgomery Field Airport. And so we are able to set up our wind turbine in the backyard of our facility, less than a kilometer away from the Montgomery Field Air, and we can run our wind turbine back there, and nobody complains. So, in fact, the most attention we got was from a couple of helicopters that saw us running, and they decided to hover and do a couple of circles. You can only imagine what their thoughts were. Hey, look at that! Is that really a wind turbine running in the backyard of Kearney Mesa, right in the middle of urban San Diego? Well, yes, it is. So, for a big piece of equipment, one of the things that I've been impressed by is how well it fits into urban environments. So we fit in pretty nicely.
And then that brings us on to, I know we spoke about in one of the past podcasts, but like microgrid systems. As we evolve as a species, essentially we were coming from centralized power, making steel, stuff like that. We're still going to need big centralized power. But with microgrid systems becoming more and more popular, can you explain, first of all, how microgrid systems work, and then how your turbine could be key in developing these microgrid systems?
Yeah, absolutely. So a microgrid is just a form of power distribution on a smaller scale than the large utility grid that the conventional model here in the United States and most developed parts of the world is they have centralized power generation. So whether it's a coal fire plant, a nuclear reactor, a large scale wind farm, or a utility scale solar farm, they find an area where they cluster a whole bunch of power generation in one central location, and then they pump that power out to the users all around the country in the utility power grid. But microgrids allow you to basically have that same model, but on a smaller scale. So you could refer to our portable wind turbine as being a microgrid, or maybe more accurately, a nanogrid, a mobile nanogrid, because we generate the power, we store it in batteries in the trailer, and we deliver it from the portable unit. So we provide that whole process from our portable platform. Now, the next scale up from that would be, you could have a home that runs off of microgrid. So now you have an off-grid home, and so you collect the power from your local power generation, you flow it into the home, it runs all the services of the home. Or it could be a community, or it could be a job site, or it could be a military forward operating base. So this is just a means of taking the generated power and distributing it locally in the microgrid form. But I'm glad you brought up microgrids, because that's actually another project that we're involved with. So here, a little less than a year ago, we formed a partnership with GM Defense, General Motors Defense Division. And they have developed a STEEP microgrid. STEEP is an acronym for Stable, Tactical, Expeditionary Electric Power. And so this is a mobile microgrid that is designed to take inputs from a variety of power generation sources, and that you can take anywhere. It's got a military focus, but one of those generation systems is going to be wind energy. And Uprise, through our partnership, we are the wind supplier to the GM Defense mobile microgrid called STEEP. So yeah, that is an active project that we're on right now. And so this is the direction, in my opinion, that the future of energy is going to. I mean, this is a pretty exciting time in the energy market because there's a lot of new technologies that are facilitating a new paradigm of energy. And mostly we're talking about this distributed generation. So the solar power that we put on the roofs of our homes and buildings, and now with systems like the Uprise mobile wind turbine that can generate power in that distributed manner, now you have the ability to make power locally and power your own local microgrid. And another critical component here is the advancement in battery technology and the ability to store that power to buffer the variability that's inherent in renewables. And as we move towards more electric vehicle adoption, now you're driving around in great big batteries. And so with vehicle to grid technology, now you have the option of charging up your electric vehicle when it's sunny out and it's parked all day. So you go to work, you park next to the solar, you charge your car during the day from solar, you go home, you plug your car into the house. Now you're pulling that stored power from the battery into your home. That gets you through the night. Maybe you've got a wind component if you've got a big enough property, that also contributes to that energy mix. And so now you've got all these, unique components that make localized generation, storage, and consumption a practical a practicality where previously we just didn't have the technology to afford that. So I think we're going to see a lot less of the traditional centralized generation model and more distributed generation. And here's a little factoid on our utility power grid, and that is we lose about 50% of the power that's generated from these central power generators in the distribution, because there's friction in those power lines and it robs the power. The longer the distance that you have to send power, the more IR drop you get over that distance, and so the more power you lose in the process from friction. So if you can make the power where it's being consumed, you avoid the need for that large, costly distribution system, and you get rid of the IR drop that's inherent in pushing power long distances. So exciting times.
Yeah, perfect. And that sort of brings round to obviously a key topic that a lot of people are investing nowadays, like energy transition, this conversion from brownfield to greenfield. So how's your company involved in that as well then, Jonathan?
Well, we have a unique product that has unique capabilities, and this just makes the adoption process easier for a lot of markets because we have a solution for that. And that's the thing with energy. There is no silver bullet that is the best energy solution for all applications. But what you need to do in the energy market is find the appropriate solution for the application. And so there was a real hole in the market for this portable renewable energy. And now that's the hole that we're filling with our system. Now, of course, you're going to have a lot of industry that's going to be, consume a lot of power. And so the centralized power generation is never going to go away. Because there are certain industries that are going to require that level of generation. But, our system, for example, if you had adequate wind, we could power 15 US homes. So it's a meaningful amount of power that we generate. But it's not the panacea for the entire market. But it definitely fills a hole. And so now there's more options, and that's our contribution.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. So if you think a little bit about the mobile power aspect of it, what about the maintenance side of things? Because I know, certainly coming from Scotland, there's, when they were early adopters of big wind turbines, and they've had a lot of maintenance issues keeping them going. How's yours
Yeah.
sort of combating this? And this is a problem, I think, with a lot of the big wind turbines. I know Siemens Energy are going to build the biggest wind turbine in the world shortly again, get bigger than a Chinese company, but they're getting bigger and bigger. But then they also have the flip side is that there's so many maintenance problems with these turbines, especially after they're getting 10 years old, especially the ones offshore when they're in extreme conditions and you're dealing with a lot of the, when you're plugged into the sea where it's the windiest it can be, it's like that's not the easiest place. It's not like surfers are going to go surfing there when these like 30-foot wind and 30-foot waves. But how does yours combat this maintenance issue? And what is the maintenance program with your mobile energy system?
Yeah, well, let me start by saying that we are acutely aware of the maintenance requirements and challenges of utility scale wind. As I mentioned in my opening, that was our background. We had a field services business that was servicing wind farms all around the world. We had close to 400 employees in that company, and it was a challenging business. From the ongoing maintenance requirement to uh, getting the employees trained and certified to work on these wind turbines, to the requirement for maintenance and some of the systems that they use in wind turbines. For example, the gearbox is the single greatest point of failure in the wind turbine, and and they're way up high in the air. So, in order to work on these wind turbines, it's a monumental challenge. Either you're climbing or taking an elevator way up into the sky to go work on something, and you better hope you remembered your screwdriver because if you forget your screwdriver or your can of oil, now you're back and forth and back, and that's a real challenge. And then what happens if something happens to one of these massive turbine blades? Do you try and repair it on site? uh, with it currently installed, do you take this massive turbine blade off and take it to a facility like our old company to have it repaired? That's a big challenge. And, they're developing, elevators and drones and robots and, to deal with this. And yeah, at the end of the day, it still makes sense, but it's a challenge. But anyways, we had a really, we were very aware of all these challenges. And so one of the things that we designed into our system was to make it so that, one, it could be operated by, local people who are probably, untrained. They don't have heavy equipment or, probably not a lot of sophistication. So how can you make it intuitive to operate with low maintenance requirements? And so we did that. We have a system. One, we don't have the gearbox. We direct drive a permanent alternator. But maybe more exciting is that all of the service work, because we can lay our mast down to ground level, we do all service work at that ground level. Nobody ever has to climb way up there to work on the turbine. But service requirements for our wind turbine are negligible. I would recommend, general inspections, but nothing requires service. Yes, we do have batteries and we do have an inverter that, depending on how many times you cycle them, they will have a cycle life. So maybe every 10 years, those systems will need to be replaced. But there's no bearings that require greasing. I would recommend that you inspect the blade and you keep the blades nice and clean, because the airfoil shape of our turbine blade is critical to its performance. So just like you don't want to have dirt build up on your solar panels, you don't want to have dirt build up on the wind blade that affects the aerodynamic shape. But general inspection and keeping it clean is the extent of the service requirement.
Yeah, that's a great answer to that as well. And then the final one, just as we're sort of wrapping up the podcast, that I'll always bring in is it's for birds out there. So I read somewhere online today there was some Democrat saying that cats kill more birds than wind turbines. Cats eat birds. That's a bit of a stupid argument type thing. And then, but skyscrapers kill more than birds out there. But, people are still, understand that these big wind turbines, they are killing birds. So how is your smaller wind turbine not going to be killing birds in the same way the big wind turbines for all your animal lovers out there or bird lovers?
Sure, sure. Well, and I've got a good answer to that. But before I give you that answer, a little bit of background on this issue. So, some of the earliest wind turbines were placed in migratory paths, and there were birds that were killed by them, protected species. And it wasn't because the bird was flying into the turbine, it's because these large three bladed wind turbines rotate at such a slow RPM, the birds would see a gap in between the blades and think they could fly through it. But as they try and fly through, boom, the blade comes down, hits them, and that's what kills them. Well, look, in the renewable energy space, we're conservationists, and when the industry learned about that, well, one, those wind turbines were removed, and they were never placed in migratory paths again. So that issue has largely been dealt with by the industry. But as you're saying, to put perspective on this issue, when you look at what kills birds, well, number one, like you said, are large buildings. And if it's large buildings kill this many birds, well, cars kill this many, then cats and everything else. And then when you look down here, there's a razor blade sliver that wind turbines are responsible for. So it's not a huge issue, but we do still take measures to address this. And so, one, we have a 5-bladed machine, so it's not 3 blades. Our rotor spins a lot faster than the traditional wind turbines. We spin up to 160 RPM. And so when we're spinning, it looks like a solid disc. And so I would be surprised if a bird, thought it could fly through that disc. But there have also been studies done that show if you have one blade that is a different color than the rest, then that gives a better visual for birds to see. And so if you look at our wind turbines, we have 4 blades that are a nice aqua blue color, and then 1 blade that's dark gray. So to create that additional visual. So, we've got quite a bit of runtime on our wind turbines, and I have yet to see a bird that has flown into the system.
Perfect. And Jonathan's a bird lover anyway. He's actually got a little bird, everybody, that's like, he's trained it like a dog. Tell us a little bit about your bird you've got that you've trained like a dog.
Well, my daughter is a animal lover, and so we've had a lot of animals through the house, including a bird. And I'm also an animal lover. So, but that bird quickly became my bird, and so his name's Mango, and he's just a cool little guy, and we love having him around the house. And it's amazing what you can do with animals when you show them love and you give them a good environment. How you can craft them into being great pets, and Mango's a perfect example of that.
Oh yeah. And then I've seen pictures where it just climbs on top of the dog, it's on your shoulder, just flies about, just as if it just lives in the house like the rest of the animals, which is amazing. So this has been super interesting again. It's great to see the development of the company and all the new projects you're getting involved in, Jonathan. Just to finish off the podcast, can you let all the viewers know where we can find out more information about yourself and the company? And at the end of today's podcast, I'm going to have one of a video of Jonathan's latest developments as well for people to watch. So.
Yeah, well, absolutely. So, we're Uprise Energy. So upriseenergy.com. We're Uprise Energy on all the major social platforms. You can find me personally on LinkedIn as well as the company on LinkedIn. And we've got a growing YouTube channel. So there's quite a bit of content on there if you're interested in seeing the world's first commercially sized portable wind turbine in action. We've got plenty of examples of that. So come find us online. Love to talk to you.
Perfect. So, well, thanks again for coming on the show then, Johnny.
Oh, wonderful. Always a pleasure. Yeah, no, thanks for having me. It was great to share some of our recent projects. And yeah, thanks for giving me the platform. I appreciate it.
Okay, brilliant. So thanks to everyone out there. You've been watching Boom It's on the Blockchain. My name's Alistair Caithness. Have a nice day.